All right, we're going to get into rates. Rates are slightly different than ratios in that rates, we're going to have labels in the top and the bottom. So rates might be like miles per hour or miles per gallon or feet per second. So we could have different labels in the top and the bottom where you might have to change both of those. So like in this first example here, suppose a car is traveling at 35 miles per hour. Just remember that per is the division sign. So this is 35 miles per 1 hour. How many feet per minute is this? Now sometimes I go over here and I put feet over minute, just to kind of, that's my goal. My numerator is going to be feet, my denominator is going to be minutes. And I got to start with something. I'm going to start changing miles to feet. I know that 1 mile is 5,280 feet. So that right there makes my miles go away. And now my label is feet. That's what I want. Feet taken care of. I don't have to mess with the numerator anymore. But I got to look at my denominator. Right now I have hours. I want minutes. So to get rid of the hour, I got to put it in the opposite spot. So hour goes on the top. 1 hour is 60 minutes. So now that I have that, right, hour cancels out with hours, and in the denominator I have minutes. That's what I want. So now that I have both of these, my labels are good. I can now just do the math. So numbers in the top I multiply, divide by the number in the bottom, and I have the answer of 3,080 feet per minute. And that's kind of how we go through each of these. So let's do a couple. A professional soccer player can kick a ball at 122 kilometers per hour. How fast is that in miles per hour? Okay, so what are we starting with? 122 kilometers per hour. So remember, the per is always where you do the division sign. Whatever comes after per goes on the bottom. So our goal is miles per hour. Miles per hour. Well, notice that we wanted hours were in hours. So my denominator is already done. I don't have to change that at all. I just have to change kilometers to hours, to miles, excuse me, kilometers to miles. I know that 1 mile is 1.6093 kilometers because that's on my cheat sheet. So that makes my kilometers in the numerator, get rid of the kilometers in the denominator, and I have miles. I want miles, boom. Both of my labels are checked off, so I'm going to just go ahead and erase that for fun here. And I can divide because the 1.6093 is in the bottom. When I divide 122 divided by 1.6093, I get 75.81 miles per hour. You could also write that as 75.8 miles over hour if you want. Those are the same. Suppose a resting heart rate is 70 beats per minute. That is 70 beats per 1 minute. How many times will it beat in an hour? So we are looking for beats in an hour. Well, I'm in beats, want to be beats, my numerator is taken care of. So my goal is just to change minutes to hours. Well, 60 minutes is 1 hour. Minutes cancels out with minutes, and now I have beats per hour. That's what I want. My labels can go away, and I can do the math. So I'm simply going to multiply across the top, and I end up with 4,200 beats per hour. Number 3, you buy a pump that is rated at 2,500 gallons per house. That should say hour. There we go. Gallons per hour. How fast can it pump in liters per minute? Okay, so we start in 2,500 gallons per 1 hour. My goal is liters per minute. Now you can do whichever one you want first, doesn't matter. I usually start at the top, work my way down. So I'm going to go from gallons to liters. And hopefully it's a little like ding, 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 ding in your head that gallons is customary, liters is metric. You've got to jump across the pond. And the only way to jump from liters across the pond is to quarts. So my first step is to go that 1 gallon is 4 quarts. That simply takes me out of gallons. Now that I have quarts, I can do 1 quart is 0.9464 liters. Okay, so that gets me out of quarts, gets me in liters. That's where I want. Top is done. So now I go to the bottom. I have 1 hour. I want minutes. Well, 1 hour is 60 minutes. Boom, minutes is done. I've got my goal labels. So the hours cancels out with hours. Now that I have my goal labels, now I can do the math. So I multiplied the numbers in the top. I will divide by 60 because it's in the bottom. And this pump will pump 157.73 liters per minute. I feel like that's a good pump, right? Seems like a good rate. All right. Speed. We can also talk about cars and the speed. So how long will the trip take from Lafayette to Fort Wayne? This is 120 miles. If you are traveling at 55 miles per hour. Now, some of these, it's a little bit tricky to decide what do you start with because you're given so much information. So part of it is they're asking for how long. How long is time? So my goal answer is hours. So when I'm thinking about this, I want my final answer to be in hours. Everything else should cancel out with my work. So when I say, okay, where are hours? Well, there's just miles. Here is 55 miles per hour. Okay, well, I want this to end in hours. So I'm going to flip this because I want 1 hour to be on the top and 55 miles because I need to end in hours, right? If you want to end in something, it has to be in the numerator. This isn't something over hours, it's just hours. So when I think about that, now I've used this piece of information, I just need to use 120 miles. Well, if I put 120 miles over 1, you'll notice that the miles cancels out. And now I'm left with just hours. So 120 divided by 55 is 2.18 hours is how long it'll take to get from Fort Wayne to Lafayette. And I'm not saying you have to do it this way. You might have said, well, I'll just take the number of miles divided by my speed and that gives me my answer. And you're correct. But some people really aren't sure how that is set up. So some of these I will kind of talk through walking, going with them backwards a little bit. Okay, so from experience, the SCOOs, that should say schools, but the SCOOs Ford Fusion Hybrid can get 47 mpgs, miles per gallon. So that's 47 miles per 1 gallon of gas. How much fuel will it take to drive from Lafayette to Fort Wayne? Again, now we know this is what is that? We know that this is 120 miles. So the question is, how much fuel? That's gallons. We want our final answer to be in gallons. This is the only spot that gallons shows up, so we need to have the 1 gallon over 47 miles as one of my ratios. Now, to get miles to cancel out, I'm going to have to put these 120 miles on the top. Miles cancels out, I'm left with gallons, and I divide, and this is going to take me roughly 2.55 gallons of gas to get there. Now, if you want to know how much it's going to cost, if we have 2.55 gallons, I saw gas today for $2.17 for every 1 gallon of gas. That makes your gallons cancel out. You multiply, and for this case, it would cost you $5.54 to get there. Right? I like to do this kind of calculation on trips just to kind of give myself an idea of, is it really worth it to go see my family if it's going to cost me X amount of dollars? Right? I used to calculate it and tell my mom, if you want me to come and see you this weekend, you need to give me $20 pay for gas because that's what it would cost me to get there. That's when gas was like $4 a gallon. So it was always an interesting conversation. Her answer was usually no. But, you know, there's family for you, right? All right, number 6. If there are 15,000 gallons of water in your basement, sucks to be you, how long will it take the 2,500 gallon per hour pump to pump all the water out? Okay, our question again is how long. That means our answer is going to be in hours. And the only spot we see hours is here where we have the 2,500 gallons per 1 hour. So I'm going to flip that upside down and put 1 hour over 2,500 gallons. And that means 15,000 gallons of water has to go on the top. These gallons cancel out. I'm going to divide, and it's going to take 6 hours for all that water to get pumped out of your basement. That's a lot of water. And that is some work with rates.